Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds better with you.
Does that sound okay? Yeah. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for everyone who's online as well. My name's Rebecca. If I haven't met you, I probably have emailed you or called you in some form. So I'm the Industry Programs Coordinator, so you're obviously all here today for the Tourism Awards. So I am your main point of call for any questions, any help with your submission. We're here, we're not just going to leave you hanging to nominate, we're here to support you throughout the whole process. So lovely to see you all here and lovely to see everyone online as well. So before we begin, just going to run through everything that we'll be covering today. So it's about a 3-hour long session and it's very valuable for all of the awards this year. So I'll be running through a bit of what the whole kind of process looks like at a base level, and then we'll be quickly going into the portal just to have a quick look at some of the functionalities. If you haven't entered the Tourism Awards before, it may be a bit daunting going into that system, so just going through that real quick just to have a look at any of the functionalities. Opportunity to ask questions today as well, which I'll answer as best I can. We'll then have a panel of some of our past judges who have lots of experience in the Tourism Awards process, obviously have judged for many years as well, and our industry experts. So they'll be talking to each section of the written submission. Really key information for you to write the best submission that you can, so these people have wealth of knowledge that they'll be imparting with you today. And they will be talking about half an hour to each part of the question set, 25 minutes, with 5 minutes question time as well. So please, if you do have any questions, feel free to write up of each of their presentations. So, get stuck into it. So as a general overview, you'll all be aware that this is what we'll be asking of you for the submission. So we have the 10,000 word written submission, which I'm just going off of a general question set such as the major tourist attractions. So just keep in mind whatever category you have nominated in, this may differ slightly, so just keep that in mind. So 10,000 words, that's usually for most categories worth 70 points of your submission. So it is a fair chunk of it. So a lot of the focus is obviously on that 10,000 words. Throughout that submission, you do have a chance to upload 25 supporting images. See fit where you think those images would best strengthen your submission. That's all done through the portal. You also have the consumer rating. Again, this is not applicable to every single category, just keep that in mind. But for those where this is applicable, it's usually worth 20 points. What the consumer rating is essentially it's derived from the ReviewPro account. There's something called a global review index, which is an average of all your reviews across all platforms that you're on, like TripAdvisor, Google My Business, Booking.com. So this is where your average will be collected from, and that will go as your consumer rating. Essentially, all you need to be doing is making sure that you've got reviews online. Within the qualifying period, so from the 1st of July to the 30th of June this year, so 1st of July 2021 to 30th of June 2022, you need to have collected at least 25 reviews across all your platforms to actually generate a global review index. So you have just a couple more weeks till the end of the qualifying period to have 25 reviews, and that's a main focus if you haven't got that already. For most categories, again, not some, there is also a site verification visit. This actually doesn't go towards any of the points, but it is a really good opportunity for you to get a judge go out to your property, your business, and a really great piece of feedback at the end of their business. It's your chance to shine in person as well. There's also an online review, which is where a judge will look at your online presence. Now, if you haven't already, make sure that you've tapped into our nominee support kit, which is on the TKSA website. So there's a tab for Tourism Awards, and then there's a nominee support kit. I have sent it out to everyone who's nominated, but if you haven't accessed it, please make sure you do so. that's where the online review questions will be. So that's where you'll be able to have a look at what a judge is actually looking at in terms of your online presence. And there's also a site verification document as well, which outlines what exactly you'll be running through as well when a judge comes out to visit you. So again, this is a general breakdown of what your submission should look like in terms of firstly the written submission. So you've got 5 sections: the introduction, the business development, marketing, customer experience, and responsible tourism. This applies to all categories. However, again, the weighting may vary category you are nominated in. COVID impacts is worth 0 points, but it's just a really good chance for you to outline what you've actually, how you've been impacted by COVID in the online period as well. Again, we've got the online review and the consumer rating, which I'll talk to a bit further in detail as well. But essentially that's what you're looking at in terms of your submission. So today we'll have a past judge look at each of those 5 category question sets and really do a deep dive into what we're expecting when we write a submission. So we'll just pop into the portal. So you're probably all familiar with this page by now if you've nominated already. I'll just quickly show you when you did nominate. I have emailed all of you, and in regards to your Review Pro account, which again goes towards the consumer rating, if you are a Quality Tourism accredited TKSA member, you should already have a Review Pro account, which will generate your GRI. If you haven't, in the portal, it'll section with verify. So just make sure if you don't have a Review Pro account, feel free to email me before. Click verify, and that will create an account for you. Generally speaking, Review Pro will take about 2 weeks to create your account, and there'll be once that has been created. So having a look at portal. So your nomination should be sitting under here in the Tourism Awards Nominations tab. More detail, and that will open up in another tab. This is a test site, so I've got lots of different nominations here. But if you've only nominated, 1 or up to 3, then you should just have them all sitting here, so it probably won't look as messy. So just have a look at this one. The entry. So this is essentially the home page of your nomination. If you are not a Quality Tourism accredited business, then we'll need to complete the business standards by the 27th of July. So you'll have that tab just up there. So yeah, if you're not a Quality Tourism accredited business, then that tab will be sitting there. You'll just have to go through the questions. If you're not sure what questions and what you need to actually answer the business standards, there's a checklist. So this is what you need. Once you've completed the business standards and after we've gone through the Tourism Awards process, this is a really great segue into becoming a Quality Tourism accredited business if you are a TKSA member. If not, it's a great opportunity to sign up as one accredited, because this is essentially the process to becoming a accredited business. Goes for accommodation standards. So if you're not a officially star rated accommodation, then you'll have the accommodation standards tab sitting up there. So you'll just have to complete that as well by the 27th of July, and that will give you an unofficial star rating. Now, if you are accredited, you'll simply have the awards submission here, the welcome tab, and the finalize tab. So if we we go into the award submission itself. So we've already played around with this, so you can see these are all down the bottom. But if you haven't done anything in here, there'll be crosses and set. We really also write your submission in a Word document. Cannot stress that highly enough. That do not do your submission in the portal and just leave it there. Make sure you're writing this in a Word document. And because I'm such a paranoid person, I would save it on my Google Drive, a hard drive, my laptop, just anywhere. Just save it anywhere you can, and please avoid doing any work in the portal for now and leaving it in there, because you never know, it might crash at some point, you might lose all your work. So it's really important that you do it in a Word document, not say that high. So running through this, you can see that it breaks up. Again, you've got your category questions. I've sent you that document. Again, it's on our website as well. So it breaks up the part of the submission that you need to write all in the portal here. In terms of the functionality, we'll just run through it. So once you've written everything in your Word document, you want to paste your nomination into each question set here. The portal really tries to help you out as well. So obviously we've got our nominee support kit on our website, but we've also got, each question has a question mark next to it. So it just kind of outlines some key information that we need from you. So really utilize those little question marks in the portal. If you're finding that this is a bit too small, then you can just click this button here and that will expand this. Have a full page to work from as well. Now, if you have entered in the awards before, good news in terms of images. So in previous years, the images were viewed in the section here, but you can now actually upload your images into a gallery, and judges will view your images through the gallery rather than in this little window here. So hopefully that's an improvement for most people. I know there was a bit of, I guess, graphic design in terms of getting in that window in previous years. So hopefully this will be a bit easier moving forward. So to upload any images in each section, there'll be a little section here where you can select a file and that will pop up. So you just upload any images from here. And then you've got a gallery here. Now, in terms of actually putting the images into your submission, say you've just talked about, in that introduction, you might want to include a map. So you would go, map of wherever you are, and then all you need to do is hyperlink. So say I've uploaded this image, I'm going to go map of whatever, save, and that will hyperlink the image. So when a judge is looking at your submission, click on that, the image just here. So much easier than in the window. That is a bit of a functionality that you just have to get your head wrapped around. Hopefully that's not too complicated for you as well. Please see with it. Anyone have any questions so far? Yes, Julie.
Just the size of your photos, there's the minimums. Oh.
Yes, so the photos you can see here in the media and promotional, we've got some guidelines here as to the images. Amanda, are you able to confirm just with the images throughout the submission that that's the same?
I think, yeah, off the top of my head, I think it is 10.
Yeah.
I know this is problems with images compressing.
Yeah.
Too small, so yeah.
So this is an optimal kind of quality of image that you should be using. So you can see those dimensions there. If you're having trouble, there's always online even there's really great free websites where you can edit the dimensions of your image as well, but that is a really good high quality image, so I would recommend sticking to those dimensions. Now, really good opportunity. So I won't run through every the portal here as we'll be talking about speakers today, but really good opportunity, 13th of July, get your draft submission in. That's all done through the portal, so you will need to write up your submission in a Word document, pop it in the portal, and then at the end here, final section, there'll be an option to submit your draft review. So that'll be by the 13th of July, and a judge will look at your submission and give that back to you in about 2 weeks from that date. So please make sure you utilise that opportunity because it's a really excellent way to see where you're tracking just about a month out from when your submissions are due. So really any work that you've done, portal, send that off as a draft review, and that's such an excellent way to see where you're tracking in terms of what you've written so far. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through again the other components of your submission. So the online review, as we've mentioned, for most categories, it is worth 10%. Again, in your nominee support kit, you've got the document that outlines what a judge is looking for in terms of your online presence. So it's a really good way to look for yourselves, look at your online presence and see if you're hitting the mark with that certain criteria and what a judge is looking for there. So it includes things like your website, social media channels, including your Facebook, your Instagram, also your Google listing, and your TripAdvisor, how you respond to reviews. So it's really important that you're across all of that as well before a judge looks at that in about mid-July. Also got our site verification visits. So again, all categories except for the following are excluded. So a judge will be allocated to you, and it'll be the judge that will reach out to you to organise a time to visit your site from mid-July to about the end of September. So quite a big window. We understand that in our industry we have bookings and such, so we give you a good window of time to make sure that a judge can go out to you when it best suits you as well. Also keep in mind that they are organising the time with you, so it's not a surprise visit. It's very organised. There's a set of questions that they'll go through as well. Again, it's a chance for you to really show them what you've got. You've written, you're writing a submission, but it's such a good opportunity to really showcase what you're passionate about as well. Again, the consumer rating. So this was only introduced last year, so it is relatively new in the grand scheme of the Tourism Awards. For most categories, it is 20%, so it's a fair weighting. So again, making sure that you have at least 25 reviews within the qualifying period of the 1st of July 2021 to the 30th of June 2022. Again, not every category is affected by this part of the submission, so just make sure that whatever category you're in, see if this applies to you. So if you don't have a Review Pro account, like I just showed you in the portal, make sure you get onto creating one as soon as you can, just so you can get your head around that website. And that's just the categories that the consumer rating doesn't apply to. So if you're sitting here freaking out, going, oh my God, I don't have enough reviews, just make sure if you are in one of those categories, then it doesn't apply to you. And for a couple of the categories, namely 8 and 25, because of the nature of the categories, it's only 5% that goes towards your consumer rating. So that's just a bit of info about Review Pro. So it does pull your reviews from over 175 review platforms. But I have found in my experience that with tourism operators, it's generally you Google My Business, your TripAdvisor, and particularly for accommodation, if you're on booking.com, Expedia, it pulls through that. But a lot of the other websites out of those 175 are not particularly relevant, but it is on the Review Pro website. So feel free to email me if you want that list of just to check what you're set up on. The Review Pro will automatically just pull all your reviews from anywhere that you're set up on. Again, if you are a TicketSA member, this is a free offering to you, which is usually valued at $1,000. If you have nominated and you're not a TicketSA Quality Tourism accredited business, then perhaps if you find that this is really valuable to you, then you can always sign up as a member of accredited and you can keep your access. If you're not a TicketSA member, you'll have access to Review Pro for the awards process, and then once it's complete, you'll go to the website. Again, just make sure if you're not accredited that your business standards are in by the 27th of July. So you have that tab that we showed you just in the portal earlier. And then for any accommodation, if you're not star rated, just make sure that you complete your accommodation standards by the 27th of July as well. Any questions? Do we have any questions online? Perfect. Okay, well, Sean is just on his way, I believe, but we might just go to Amanda if that's okay. Now hand over to Amanda Dalton-Weeks, who has been a judge for many years.
Yeah, that's something.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Sorry, Rebecca, I might just get a little, is it just the, right, easy, okay, thank you. Put it there and hope I don't, right. So, hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, we've started on your process for getting drafted up, but this might help a little bit. So I'll just run through some general tips first up on how to approach your submission generally, and then we'll go into the COVID section and the introduction section. So the general tips, once you know your category and you've got your questions downloaded, go through the keywords of the question. So go through and identify between 3 and 6 words for each of the questions to just really identify what that question is asking. So once you've done that, brainstorm a few dot points that immediately come to mind in answer to that question. And from there, expand each of those dot points into a sentence or paragraph, then aiming for 100 words per score point for the question to flesh it out. So that's just a basic structure for fleshing out the question and getting you started. I believe I can see quite a few of you writing notes. I believe Rebecca's going to make the slide presentation available, so all this stuff will be available in your nominee kit. So just write down the things that are pertinent, if you like. So yeah, so that process will really help to clarify what the question is asking for and help step you through it. Your images obviously support your content; they're not in place of it. The old adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words really does come into play here. Collages of related images are a really good way to get extra images in on a related topic. So keep that in mind because you do only have the 25 image allowance. High resolution images, as Rebecca covered, we're aiming for 10 meg. If it's not quite that much, that's fine, but the bigger the images, the better, because we, as judges, we can get a really good sense of place from those. Make sure you use captions on any of your images just to sort of introduce it, explain what it's showing. and roughly dividing the image allowance between the sections. Some of the sections will need more imagery than others, some will need more tables than others, for example, but just use it as a rough guide, same as that word allocation per point score. For evidence, whenever you make a statement, back it up with evidence. So you want measurable outcomes wherever you possibly can. So I've just put a few examples there of what is quantified evidence, so your metrics, what is qualified evidence, such as testimonials and examples, and mixed evidence, which is especially useful for marketing related because you need data and examples. Editing. Now, really important step here is to get someone who's not involved in the business, who's pretty objective, to have a proofread and look for any spelling errors, or make sure that everything makes sense, because you get so close to your submission while you're going through that writing process that it's very easy to miss things. So make sure you're getting someone to check it for you at your draft stage before you put it in for the judges, and crucially before you submit it the final time. So yeah, they'll hopefully be able to tell you whether you've answered the questions properly. Share those keywords with them if you'd like to. Doesn't make sense to an objective reader. And also another thing to keep in mind, if you're using acronyms, make sure you're writing them in full for the first time, then you can put them in brackets and acronyms throughout the submission to save. Another lot of general points here. So keeping a tourism focus, remembering that this isn't a business award, it's a tourism award, so always bring your points back to tourism. Don't assume reader knowledge of your business or region. So it's a good exercise to imagine that you've had success at the state level and you've gone through to national judging. What does a national judge need to know about your business, about your region, and where it sits in South Australian tourism? So keep that big picture mindset wherever you possibly can. So big picture, and let your passion for your business shine through. So if you're a business owner, or you're in a business that you love, let that shine through in marketing, because we can really see it on the other end. So some resources here, and no doubt Rebecca will have shared quite a few resources already, but the SATC website, the South Australian Tourism Commission website, has some great data, strategies, plans, so they're all listed there. I haven't done hyperlinks on there because you can just go onto the website and look at the resources page, so have a look at those. TICSA website, obviously, for any workshops, etc. You've got resources there, and your regional tourism websites as well will have all of your regional tourism plans and data. So from there, we'll go into the COVID impacts. As Rebecca said, that doesn't attract any points. It's really just to set up the situation that you've been in for the judges. So it's a brief background on the impacts of bushfires, COVID, floods, etc. The roller coaster of the ongoing roller coaster really of the last year. So keeping it very brief this year. Keep to dot points if possible. Very short, sharp answers, using factual information, but framing it in a positive way. So, for example, what was the challenge? What did you do? What was the outcome? Just dot points there, but try to sort of look for positives, what you've gained out of it, how you've risen to those challenges, opportunity and crisis. Not always easy, I know, but see how you can frame it. Now, continuing on from that, think about how you've improved, adapted, innovated in response to those challenges. Any changes you've made to your core offering, for example, wine businesses, a lot of them are doing direct to customer. You know, that's a major innovation for a lot of them who've relied on cellar door. So, you know, thinking about that sort of thing. Proactive use of your shutdown time. Have you upgraded any physical assets? Have you upgraded online assets? Have you revised your procedures and processes? Training, that sort of thing. Just think about what you've been able to achieve in any shutdown time in the business, and also what those flow-on effects are. So, you know, a lot of places have noticed that their communities have become closer, their local business networks have relied on each other a bit more. Think about those things as well. So a lot of information here when we've said dot points, but these are thought starters. So demonstrate the journey, what prompted the change, any research and planning that you did. All of this stuff can be held over to go into the relevant sections in your submission. So think about which section it best sits in, and that gives you fodder for that section when you get to writing that. So yeah, you can see there we've got basically the specific challenge, the aim and the outcome. Once again, those document formats. You can also talk about what didn't work further along in the submission, but say what you learned and what you can do differently. So going on to the introduction, that's worth 15 points this year. So the points and questions have been redistributed from when they were adapted to COVID. So this is really a big picture overview of your business. This really sets up your story, you're using the who, what, when, where, how and why, telling someone who ostensibly doesn't know anything about your business, who you are, what you do, who your customers are, but just in a nutshell, big picture, you'll go into detail further along. So you've got some thought starters there. For example, what does your business offer, your products, experiences, services? When was the business start? How did it evolve? You know, something that came out of an identified need in the customer base? Was it something that came out of a lifestyle change that is an area that you've always been passionate about? Tell us about how it started. Who owns and works in the business? So, you know, if it's a small business, tell us about the founders. If it's a bigger business, tell us about some of the key people in the business. Where's it located? And what sets you apart from your competitors? Now, that's a really point of difference you'll then expand on in marketing, but that really differentiates you from the rest of the pack. Demonstrating your eligibility for the chosen category. So that is, you know, you say, for example, your accommodation or your tourism retail business. How are you eligible for that category? Also, a little snippet of your business mission, vision and values. So your overall business philosophy, you'll expand on this in the business development section, but just give us some headline starters there. Remembering this is all very touching on everything introductory that you will go into more detail in your submission. Going back to the point I made earlier about it being a tourism submission, tell us about your commitment to tourism excellence, so local, regional, state and national levels, your involvement, your contribution, how do you collaborate with other people in your region, for example, how do you deliver an excellent tourism product and visitor experience, any of your amenities, products, etc., and awards and accreditation. That really lends weight to your tourism excellence and commitment to it. I always recommend including 2 maps. Once again, with that big picture national view, show your business location at a state level. So it doesn't have to be a snapshot of the entire state, but, you know, in relation to Adelaide, in relation to the airport, that type of thing. And then at a regional level, so do a map within a map to show your location within your region. That really sets up where you sit in the state landscape. Using hero images throughout your submission. So think about what you've got featured on your homepage. What do you use in any marketing campaigns or promotional drives, social media pages? What are those hero images that you put out there that really engage the viewer? Use those as priority in your submission, and then also use your more specific ones. So some examples there for the types of images you might be looking for. So, you know, the front door of your business is always a good starting point. You know, that's going to be the first physical thing that people see with the site. Your ultimate product or experience, etc. And also show off your accreditation and awards if you've got any of those to show off. That's a really good one for a collage. So, now the introduction differs slightly for a few of the categories. So as noted there, so you'll find that some of them, for example, festival events is in two parts. This year with question sets, we've got, rather than just one overarching question, we've got the sub-questions as well, which will help you break things down a bit. As Rebecca said, make sure you're reading those response guidance tips thoroughly. They'll really give you an indication of what you're looking for there. And that keyword exercise will help you to flesh that out. Using the entrance support resources. Some really good ones are the draft submission review, the Ask the Experts sessions that we're conducting in July. So you've got a lot of support, make sure you use it. So that's a rush through in record time. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I guess just the first section with, sorry Jason here from the Zoo, with 0 points, the COVID overview, that seemed like a lot of slides and bullet points for it to be a brief.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. My advice to everyone last year was to use that section to put a lot of information in. So I've kept all of those thought starters there. This year, as I said, they're just looking for dot points, short, sharp information, but use those as thought starters. So the crux of it is what was the impact? What did you do in response? What was your outcome? Then use the detail throughout the submission and the relevant sections. Anything else, Hello?
Hi, the acronym you mentioned, just spell it out at the beginning, but am I correct in that different questions go to different assessors?
No. So the judge, so you'll have 3 judges who will read your submission. We have teams of 3. So 3 of us will read independently and score independently, and then at the end of the process we all come together and compare scores, compare notes and look for discrepancies. So yeah, so just use the term in full to start with. Don't assume that someone's even if it is something like SATC. You know, everyone in South Australian tourism knows what SATC is, but if you go to nationals, a national judge may have to stop and think twice. One of my big pieces of advice for people is to always think about the end reader. Make it as easy as possible for them to read your submission, understand your submission. That will subconsciously help your score. If you're giving me something that's easy to read at 11 o'clock at night, favourably if I have to choose a half point or not. So, okay. Anything else for anyone?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Hi, I just wondered, will the viewing of the award-winning submission be different to last year's?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
The winner, the viewing of the award-winning submission, will that be different to the one that was provided last year?
Yes. So Rebecca's nodding in the background saying yes. So
It's Willunga Farmers Market.
Thank you.
oh, lovely. So the beautiful Jenny Mitten from Willunga Farmers Market has offered her submission this year. So she has done really well over the last few years, and that's a great example of someone who has a national mindset when they're writing their submission. So really throw that opportunity for sure. Anything else?
That was Monique from Streaky Bay. Can I send my love to her?
Oh, yes. Speak to the clouds above, because that's where the sound's coming from.
Oh, is that you, Lynn?
Yes, it is, darling.
I'm sitting in an Airbnb in Adelaide. We just had country chants and I'm half asleep, so
Oh, very good. Very good. I'm taking notes.
thank you.
Very diligently, I can attest to that. So anything else from anyone? No, very good. Well, I will hand over to Jane.
Hello, everyone. Amanda is one of the greats. So she's been around for a little while and lots of great advice. And I think the last thing that you ended on was so important. So I've been a judge for 5 years now, is the readability. So if it flows, if it's easy to read, if we know exactly what you're talking about straight away, it makes a huge difference. So just that alone is huge advice. All right, this is me. So I'm Jane Simons. I work for Cornerstone College in the Adelaide Hills. I'm the Communications and Engagement Director there. I have a background of over 20 years in business development. I started my career early on in tourism and worked for Connections. If anyone remembers Connections, there was small group tours through Australia and New Zealand. I used to be the BDM for them. Then I moved on to Top Deck and I was a sales manager for Top Deck. I worked for APT, which is Luxury Coach and Cruising. I was a sales manager for APT for 9 years, and also Backroad Touring as well. So I used to be the sales manager for Backroad Touring too. Then I moved to the sales manager position at Adelaide Showground, and I was sales manager there for nearly 5 years, looking after all the events that came to the Adelaide Showground, and then of course the Royal Adelaide Show. I used to oversee areas there as well. So I have an extensive background, pretty much in sales and business development, and moved into the education sector about sort of 16 months ago, where I'm the Communications and Engagement Director there at Cornerstone, which is very much sales, marketing, communications, and that's where I'm at. All right, so I thought we'll do a bit of Business Development 101 to start with. And I Googled what is business development. So good old Google gives you a definition when you need it. And found this one, which was from Investopedia, which is a website I found. And basically it said, in the simplest terms, business development can be summarised as the ideas, initiatives and activities that help make a business better. I thought that was a really great definition. This includes increasing revenues, growth in terms of business expansion, increasing profitability by building strategic partnerships and making strategic business decisions. So I thought it was really concise and really clear. Points to note there is that it doesn't necessarily always relate to sales. So when you look at business development, you can actually focus on any area of your business, and it's those small changes that can make big changes in the long run. So it's just having a very clear picture of your entire business, actually drill down and look at it as a whole. Business development is crucial for every business. So regardless if you're a sole operator or you work for a company that's got 500 employees, you still need to do the basics for business development. It's important to make time to work on your business and reassess, and that's super key here, is you need to reassess along the way. You can't necessarily just do a plan and stick to it. You need to actually change sometimes to move with what the industry is doing or what's happening with your competitors. So you need to be agile, but it's super necessary regardless of what position you're in. And the big thing here is make the time. So a lot of us at the beginning of the year, it's usually at the beginning of the year, we have all these great ideas. We'll sit down, we'll do a business development plan, we'll do a sales and marketing plan, and then we might actually put that in the drawer and think about it 6 months, 9 months, or once again at the beginning of the year, the following year. And you can't do that. You have to pull it out. You have to be accountable. You have to bring it out and make sure that you keep to the promises, because that's really what they are. It's what you've decided to do. So make sure that it's front of mind. All right, so what's the how-tos of a business development plan? Well, ultimately, you're taking a deep dive into your business. It's focusing on the good, the bad, and sometimes it's the ugly. A lot of times we do things that we think are the right thing, but maybe they're not, or we need to actually take a good hard look at how we are operating. Sometimes it's not great, so we need to be honest. So that's the first thing. Look at your operating model, look at the cash flow, look at your profit margins. What is the customer experience like? Put yourself in the shoes of your customer. Would you book with you? Would you return? Would you recommend your services? Did you give it your all? Look at your product offering. Look at your target markets. Are you hitting the demographics that you set out to achieve? Do you need to change the demographic of the target market that you're after? Look at the potential in changing markets that we're in. Look at your distribution channels. Are you doing it the best you can? Are you making cost savings where you can? Are you using local suppliers where you can? Are you supporting each other? Look at your promotion. Are you doing this frequent enough? Are you doing this in the best possible way? Are you reaching your target markets? Are you drilling down on that demographic and looking where they find their news, where they find their recommendations? How well do you know them? Look at your branding. Look at your facilities. Are you offering what you promised you're offering? Look at your product development. You need to identify areas that will make the most impact to your bottom line first. So everyone wants to make money, let's face it. We're not just in it for the love. So we need to look at our bottom line first, and let's get the wins on the table first. So let's be rewarded for the efforts that you put in. You need to set short-term goals as well as long-term goals. You need some quick wins, but you also need to be focused and look at the future as well. You need to look how you're going to get there. What strategies will you implement and break them down? So make them into smaller, more achievable goals. How will you do it? When will you do it? What resources will you use? How will you measure success? What is success? How will you track your progress along the way? Then, what are the results? And are there any learnings? There's always learnings. And results don't always have to equal success either. So sometimes you try things and they don't work out, and that's okay. So you reassess, you get back up, you try again. And sometimes you learn things from your failings and learn things that will ultimately allow you to succeed later. All right, so you've got 3 questions in the business development category. Question A is, during the qualifying period, what have you implemented to improve your product experience, service, and/or provide business recovery, resilience, in the wake of national and world events. So this is worth 5 marks. So the first thing you need to do is basically, what did you introduce? What was new? Or what have you refined? So it doesn't have to be a new idea. It has to be something that you've taken to the next level. So what did you change? How did you do it differently? Initiatives can be across any area of the business. Once again, it doesn't have to be about sales. It can be your product offering or service. It could be staff retention. It might be looking at your business as a whole and saying, how do I keep relevant at the moment? What do I need to do to just get through this storm? Right out, but what do I need to do? It might be just keeping the staff that you have so that you have the experience at the other end. It could be your product delivery, it could be your partnerships, working with your local suppliers, or it could be a new business venture. How many of us are doing things differently or something new that we never thought we would do possible before because of COVID? It's changed the opportunities that we have. Opportunity, there's the word. You've got to think of it as an opportunity. All right, question B. Why were these innovations development implemented, and how does this align to the overall business goals and strategies? So this is worth 5 marks. So why you did what you did. Why did you do it in the first place? What motivated the focus? Was it because of guest feedback? Did you get some feedback that something has to change, so you've made the step to make the change? Is it because of rising costs that you need to pull back? Or is it because your inquiry numbers are getting lower or not where they need to be? So you need to focus on how you can change that. Bring this back and align it to your business plan and your strategic goals. So it has to link back to your business. Include evidence to support this. This is super important. Don't just make statements, you need to back it up. So you need to show the research that you did in the first place. So why you chose the goal that you decided to do, why did you do it? What do you have as evidence to support the decision? So it might be declining in numbers. It might be low numbers on Instagram and Facebook that you need to rectify and make a difference. You need the data to support it, and you might have guest survey results. So it might be feedback from the guest, it might be an opportunity to showcase this, the recommendations, or it might be your reply back to them saying that you're going to put these initiatives in place. Make it legit. What are the immediate and long-term benefits to the customer and your business? So you need to outline why you chose to do what you did, what the benefits will be to the customer, and then ultimately how that will come back to you as a business. How will that benefit you? All right, the last question, question C. What were the outcomes of the innovation development? It's also worth 5 marks. So this is where you get to say the results. So what was the result? Provide that data to support it. So if you've got stats, so when you finished and started, then display them and let us see it. Did you achieve your objective? So was it successful? If it wasn't, why not? Tell us. What's your learnings? Because from here you might be able to say it didn't work, but it's identified that I now need to do X, Y, Z. So is the objective still ongoing? So you might be still going through that period where you've got a couple of assessments, you've met a couple of tiers, but you haven't got the results that you need just yet. So therefore, you've got that on board, you know the learnings, you expect the outcome based on what you're currently doing will result by, give us a date, give us a timeline, and what you expect to achieve. So it's okay to forecast as well. Say that you're doing that. Do you need to refine or do you need to reassess? So acknowledge that it hasn't been working or I just need to tweak it slightly and this is what I'm going to do. Are there any unexpected outcomes or benefits? Sometimes when we start in a certain direction, we uncover other things, other learning which might benefit your business or might result in a benefit. All right, tips when answering your questions. First thing, plan your answer. Don't just get straight into it and this is what I'm going to do. Have a look at your business development plan and select the most relevant and impactful examples. So you're already doing a lot of these things. So select the ones that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. Remember that your examples must only relate to the qualifying period. I said it's okay to refine them, to change them, but give the evidence to support that. Do you have all the evidence that you need? Do you have the data to support it? The statistics, do you have that? Does your example align with your business plan? You bring it back into your purpose, the reason for your business. Your examples, once again, don't need to be sales focused. They can be on other things like staff retention, environmental impact, community awareness, any aspect of your business. But plan first. Second part when answering. So use SMART. So we all heard of the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, and targeted. So when you answer, have you ticked all of these things off? Keep it simple and easy to read. You need to clearly define 3 things: goals, strategies, and your outcomes. So your goals, what you wanted to achieve as a business. Why did you do it in the first place? Why it was needed? And can you tie that back into your business KPIs? Your strategies, what you did, how you did it, what activities, what initiatives, what promotions, what did you actually do? And the outcomes, can you show the results? Results in relation to your KPIs, they need to be measured and specific. Have you got that information? Outline the benefits that have been achieved for your customer and for your business. You need to provide quantifiable evidence. Super important. Don't just make general comments. Don't just say the business has increased. Passenger numbers have now increased. Give us specifics. Tell us that it's grown by 15.2% or 586 new followers. Give us the actual data. Use graphics. Now you need 2 graphics in your answer at least. And there can be anything from your Facebook or your Instagram stats. It could be your Review Pro. You need at least 2 to support it. And track your progress. Break it down. Give us a timeline of what you achieved, when you achieved it. It just makes it more believable when we're reading it. All right, so I've just done an example of what a table could look like. This is a very basic table, but just with a few things that you could focus on. So for example, you might be focusing on your revenue, where you want to increase the revenue by 10%. Your marketing promotion or your demographic reach. So that could be the KPI that you originally set out to do. Give us the specifics. Tell us where your business is currently at when you decided to implement this goal. So your goals could be increasing revenue, it could be increasing your average night stay, it could be attracting a different demographic than you're currently attracting. So you might have an average age of 47, but you know that you need to attract a demographic between 20 to 30s that are couples because they've got the money and the ability to spend. You might want to increase your Facebook and Instagram followers by a specific amount, or you might want to increase your Review Pro score. So it needs to be specific. Then you need to put in your strategies. So what are you going to do to achieve this? So if you're after a demographic of 20 to 30, for example, you need to create something that's Instagrammable. So creating those moments, those must capture social media moments. So you might do a paid influencer campaign, or you might tweak what you're doing. Reels, everyone. Use Reels with social media. That is the easiest way to get organic advertising on Facebook at the moment. So TikTok is leading at the moment, and it's changing how people are getting their social media. Use Reels. Don't use stories. So there's a bit of an inside information for you because you get more reach for it. They appear on the algorithms a lot quicker. Okay, so, or you might offer an inclusive 2-night pamper package. So you just might change what you're doing and your focus and make it more streamlined. What's the outcome? Give us the specifics. The Instagram stats are now up by 22%. Show the actual image where you've done your search, you've got the data to support it. Your website page visits are increased by 28%, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So show us the specifics. Now, lastly, tell us your story. Nobody else's. What's unique to your business in your words? Super important. We all talk about tone of voice a lot. This is your opportunity to show your tone of voice. So do it. Make it unique to your business. Make it unique to you. Use a table. We love tables. Tables make information really easy to read, really clear, concise, and everything is there. Love tables. Quantify, quantify, quantify. Very, very important. Use real numbers, real stats. Use the data. Use graphs. This makes it, once again, really easy to read, and it's proper information. Results do not have to equal success. Learnings are just as important. Let us know. So you're not going to get marked on whether or not you succeeded or not. That's not how we mark. We mark on how you deep dived into your business and what you did to achieve what you did. And treat each question as a standalone. This is really important as well. For me as a judge, when I read something and someone makes reference to what they did in question 1 or question 2, that's not relevant to the specific question that you're answering. So make sure that you answer everything that you need in each question and treat it as a standalone. It's not linked as such, apart from when you're using the acronyms all the way through, because we do read the entire submission. And that is me. Any questions? Yes.
Just, so this year quite clearly segregated the A, B and C for the category. So how do you include a table when your table included data that goes across A, B and C? Like where does that table sit?
So the table will actually feed into all of it because all the information is there. Then you have the opportunity to go into each of the separate questions and write more text, which might refer to the table as well. So
use that as an overview.
As an overview, that's right. So it all feeds into the one.
And tables will still be images, Rebecca?
Tables will still be in the window. So you're not uploading them as an image. It goes into where all your text is and it's counted as Word. Like it's counted in your Word.
Sorry, that was, yeah.
And we have a bit of a checklist too, so we make sure that you've hit all of those things. And certainly when I look at it as a whole. So not necessarily the breakdown of the 1, 2, 3. You've got marks allocated to those areas, A, B, C. But we look at it as a whole.
Okay. So in terms of your readability, if you're highlighting 2 or 3 developments, you want to clearly articulate with some of those headings?
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Yes.
Felicity from Adelaide. If we're looking at tone, like you sort of said, to write it in the tone of your business, our tone is very familiar and friendly, but that's appealing to our audience. I'm a little concerned about that perhaps a judge who's reading that is not our audience necessarily. How does that reflect, like when you're reading something that's done in quite a specific tone for a specific audience, how does that reflect for you as a judge? Should we round that out a little bit more because we're trying to appeal to maybe a slightly different audience with the judges that are reading the submissions?
I personally, I like the tone of voice. It cuts through the, sometimes it's same, you know, you pick something up and you're reading something that you could have read and you get confused in your mind as well, like, oh, is that? So you have to double check things because it can be same. So I really do like the tone of voice. I think that when I read something that is quite unique to the business, I go, these guys get it. You know, they understand, they embrace who they are and they're confident in their approach and know who they are. They know their target market, they know what they're doing. I like it.
And I would say that goes back to that point about letting your passion show through, your passion, your personality. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it on a sliding scale, look to sort of tilt more towards the professional end of your tone. You don't have just
Swear words in there, it's okay.
but you don't have just one tone of voice for the entire business. So lean a little bit more towards the professional than the colloquial, but certainly let your business personality show through. So
Remember that there's multiple judges reading this, so they are generally from different backgrounds, different age groups, different demographics. So it's about telling your story more than anything, being individual in the way you do it.
I mean, back in the day, it used to sort of lean a bit more to be towards something similar to an academic document. These days, it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more about your brand personality than it is about, hitting stats and producing a very sort of dry professional document.
Kind of where, yeah, I'm glad it was brought up today because that's where I was thinking it should sit, but I'm glad that we have an opportunity to show, our brand personality within that.
After the amount of words we read, we want something that's going to be funny as well.
Yes,
It's really refreshing. It's really refreshing to find a submission like that where you just go, breath of fresh air. So, but as long as you're hitting all of those points, make sure you're answering the question, make sure you're getting the evidence in there and keep it relevant. So,
And still focus on the detail, no spelling mistakes. That's real hate as well, is when we read something that hasn't been proofread. So make sure you focus on it, you reread, you get someone else, fresh eyes. And a lot of times as well, I notice with submissions that you might start all sort of gung-ho, so the introduction's fantastic, and then as it goes on, it kind of tapers off, and you don't put the same amount of effort into everything. And we understand that because it's a mammoth amount of work, but just take a step back and make sure you give every question that standalone focus so that you hit the mark.
and I would almost add into that, rather than approaching the whole submission in a linear fashion, like from question 1 to question 5, approach it holistically. So start with that structural framework, keywords for each of the questions, then flesh out each of the questions. So rather than linear question 1 to 5, do structural, so top to bottom, going down into detail. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
We just had a question come through online. It's more of a holistic question. It's, as a new business only operating since January of this year, how would we be judged against a new business who has been operating for nearly the whole year?
So the question is, as a new business that just started operations in January this year, how would they be judged against a new business that started, say, last
Start of the
year?
qualifying period.
At the start of the qualifying period. Do you have input?
Well, that I would say that that new business category has been introduced to specifically address that. So it's not as stringent about what you need to include. So each submission is marked on its own merit. You're not necessarily comparing a full financial year to a full financial year, and that's exactly what that category addresses. So answer the questions, go through the exercises, and that would give you your own merit. So does that match that?
Yes, she said, great, thank you.
Good.
If you are a new tourism business, as well as if you did start your operations in the qualifying period, then you must enter that category as part of the rules. So if you have entered into any other category besides that, you do need to enter, and it's the only opportunity as well. So it's a great one. This program is designed as a business development tool, so it is an excellent way to start your journey through the tourism awards in that new tourism business category. So hoping everyone online as well caught the questions that we've received. I just thought we'd run through a couple of them just in case introduced it. So in terms of acronyms, just making sure that we understand that based on Amanda's recommendations is if you do include any acronyms, just make sure the first time that you mention something, say like the South Australian Tourism Commission, that you write South Australian Tourism Commission for the first time. Moving forward, when you do mention them, you can write SATC, just keeping in mind that if you are to win and go to the national level, the judge who's looking at your submission at the national level might not know what SATC is. So make sure you make that very clear from the beginning. What's the question about the COVID impact? Quite a bit of information based on that, although it is only it's about 0 points. But Amanda's feedback and recommendations is just take her recommendations as a starting point, but making sure that what you do write is very concise, dot points really, but just making sure that you use her recommendations as a really good starting point, and it's really excellent information. Tables, just making sure that you're all aware that if you do include any tables, which is highly recommended, that you are aware that the words in each table do go towards your word count. So just make sure that anything that you do include in those tables. In the portal itself, there is a little word count functionality at the bottom of each window, I believe, so you can see how many words are hitting. But yeah, just make sure that you're aware of that. And tables can be put into those windows where your text goes. It's not uploaded like an image, it is input, pretty much like a Word document where you insert a table and structure that from there. And in terms of the tone, there was a question about the tone that you use. I believe in previous years it was a bit more of a kind of structured academic, I guess dry, I'd always want to say, process. But I think these days, if you have a look at even like the national winners, having a look at what their product is, particularly if I think of one off the top of my head, like beef. I think it was Beef Australia, it was some festival about beef, which you go like, okay, interesting. But they're obviously like so passionate about it that their submission would have used some kind of tone, like it's all about your passion. So I think if you can capture that in your submission, then you're really nailing it. And if your brand personality is, you know, a bit quirky, a bit different, I think capturing that, obviously, again, on that professional side of the fence, but I think just capturing, yeah, any quirks, any personality and passion is really important to include in your written submission. Again, you've got 3 judges looking at the whole of your submission, so it's not just one person if they don't particularly, you know, like your brand or like your personality. There are 3 eyes looking over it as well, so they do come to a bit of an average as well. And again, they're reading a lot of submissions too, so I think anything that does make you stick out can help as well. So just going over those questions to make sure everyone heard online.
Great. All right, I'll get into it. My name's Sean de Boer, for those of you who don't know, CEO of the Tourism Industry Council. I was supposed to be on earlier, but unfortunately I got waylaid in a board meeting. So this is my 5 moments of fame, Rebecca. I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time and effort to participate in this year's awards program. It's something that is dear to my heart. Every year, for those of you that have seen me before, if you're in the room, I get up and talk about how I, really value and think the awards program is one of the elements that we have as an industry here in South Australia. I've been involved in the awards program for probably close to 20 years, from entrant to judge to now supporting the process and supporting Rebecca, who manages the program for us. It's no better business development program in my view than the awards program. The integrity behind it is best I've ever seen in terms of an awards judging effort as well. And there's some judges in the room here today. Integrity and the rigour behind the judging process is as good as I've ever seen as well. In governance, we have pitch partners that get involved from a formal auditing process point of view as well. Ultimately, though, it's about the benefits of the program, and Rebecca would have covered off many of these things, so I don't want to weigh people, but I do just want to say that obviously there's, you know, a big night, there's a great celebration, and some people walk away with wins, some people walk away with silvers, bronzes, and some people don't get anything on that night other than to enjoy the evening quite often with their teams and to celebrate 12 months of operations, which is a great thing to do. But ultimately, we believe that everyone receives a significant benefit out of the program because it is about different descriptions. And I've heard people use, it's a retrospective business plan, it's a business health check, it's whatever it is, it's a bloody significant process that you all go through to put in a submission. And what that means is that you interrogate your business. It means that you go into the nooks and crannies of your business that you otherwise might not do because you're too busy running the business. It forces you that discipline to actually go and delve and make sure that every resource you've got in your business is working to its best possible usage for a return. And one of the great things out of the awards process is not only that discipline of forcing you to have to critique and pull apart your business and put it on paper. You then have to do that with most entrants with a site inspection where someone outside of your business comes in and has a look and provides support in that business development story. And then there's 3 judges that look at all submissions, and those judges are carefully picked. We have lots of expressions of interest. There's always different judges that don't either get picked or we don't come back into the program, and because we're carefully curating those judges to make sure that the peer review that you all receive as entrants is of the highest standard possible. And again, our aspiration is once you attend the dinner, win, lose or draw, you then receive significant peer review feedback. We have this feedback from entrants that they then interrogate that information and then they implement elements of it that they think are beneficial to their business over the next 12 months. Now, I've talked to some business owners that this is the whole platform they used for more than a decade to actually develop their business was by entering the Tourism Awards and then using the process to further develop their business outside of submission award time. So I firstly thank you all for taking the time and energy to participate today. Please lean on us for support. We've got a significant support program. Rebecca's a go-to person, and she's a great asset of the Tourism Industry Council. And ultimately, our aspiration is that everyone gets a high-level business development outcome from the awards program. So please give us your feedback as well as you move through the program. So that's it from me. Thanks very much.
So much, Sean. We'll just be heading over now to Linda from Purple Fluff.
Right, hi everybody. I understand we have people online as well. So if I am not looking at you, that's because I have real people here. So apologies for that up front. I'll look at the real people. Okay, so I started as a judge of the Tourism Awards last year, was my first year. And it was quite an amazing experience in that there are an enormous amount of applications. And like Sean just said, people put an enormous amount of efforts into their applications. And so this is an opportunity today, I guess, for you to all to figure out, you know, the best way to put in that enormous amount of work that you're about to do. Because as a judge, you know, it's interesting because you don't really want to take for granted anything that you do. Because I don't know, as a judge, I don't know anything, probably anything about your business. Because if I do know something about your business, I have to put my hand up and say, I know about that business because, you know, of integrity and all those sorts of things. So please remember, as a judge, we don't know anything about, assume that we know nothing about your business. And so therefore then, it's really important that you don't forget any details, like little things that you might do that you think you take for granted. But what I'm going to do today is just to talk about the marketing section. And if you can't hear me, please let me know. I'm normally very loud, so I can be louder if you need me. I'm going to do the technology. Okay, so this is now about the marketing question. And in the marketing question, there are several elements that you need to look at. And it's talking about, you know, how you grew your business, how it was made resilient through COVID, or any changes that you had to do. Last year was probably impacted a lot more, I suspect, than this year, but we still had some things that impacted people with COVID. And so, you know, it's important for you to share with us what you did differently during those times. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. The marketing section, as I understand this year, is about 15 points. And the estimate from the lovely Tixer people here is to do about 100 words per point. So I think last year was 2,500 words for the marketing section, but now it's different this year because there's a new section being added. So on average, the guide is about 100 words per point on guide. It's just a guide. It's really important, and we'll go through this in a great deal of detail. It's really important for you to really delve deeply, know your target market intimately. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. To give a clear overview, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, and then talk about what your marketing strategy was and the outcome. So they're the things that we're going to talk about in this presentation. If you have any questions, I know we're meant to have questions at the end, but if you have any burning questions that you need to know right then and there, I'm very happy to take them because you might forget at the end of the presentation. So here's the cool thing, right? We're doing marketing. So marketing is the fun part of the whole application. It's where you get to talk about your bells and whistles, where you get to talk about all the fun stuff that you've got to do, strategically, we hope. But, you know, all of the things like social media and, you know, brochures and artwork and design and all the fun and happy stuff. So it should be actually a really good section, and it should be the section that we all want to read the most because it's, you know, interesting. Because there are so many word limits, and you know, you want to actually put in a lot more words than you've got available to you, believe it or not. When you come to a section, and you know, there'll probably be the most challenging thing is to actually cut back on words. There are some little tricks, and I'm not sure what other people have said. So if other people have said this already, please just go, I know that already, and I'll move on. But one of the tricks is to use images, and so a picture tells 1,000 stories, right? So it's all well and good. You could stand there, and unless you're an author of a novel and you're actually really fantastic at writing, you know, to get a visual look of what you've done and what you've achieved is so much better in a picture. Plus also, you don't have to use so many words if you use a picture. So use as many images as you possibly can, you know, within the limits. The other thing is, when you're using information, I want you to think about, you know, collating your thoughts or the way, the process around how you actually describe something in a table. Because tables actually force you to be a little bit more succinct, but they also make it very easy for the judge to read. So, and I'll give you an example of a table in a minute. So we'll go through that in a minute. It's all well and good with all marketing to actually sit there and go, oh, well, we did this and we did this and we did this and we did this. But there's nothing better than if somebody says, yes, they did this and this is what we thought of it. So it's really important to try and have evidence about all the things that you've done. So, and we'll talk, as I said, we'll talk about all of these things in more detail in a minute. But when you come to say, oh, well, you know, we did a fantastic campaign, paid campaign online, it's really brilliant, we reached this many people, we did this, we did that. But if you can put in evidence of that, so these are the stats, this is what people said about it, this is our Google reviews, all those sorts of things, that evidence is more powerful than you just saying stuff. The other thing is referencing extra sources. So, you know, you've got the SATAC website, you've got the SATAC tourism plan, you've got your regional association strategies, you've got the TIXA website. So on all of those sorts of things, if you're using those to align your thinking and your strategy for your marketing techniques, that will actually add weight to your application as well. So as I said, we're going to go through all of these things in a little bit more detail. It's really important also that if you have a go at something, and we all do this, we have a go at something, marketing's it's not an exact science, you know, you have a go, sometimes it just doesn't work, but that's okay. It's really good if you say, we had a go at this, it didn't work, this is what we learned from it, and this is what we'll do differently next time. And that shows really great strategic thinking as far as I'm concerned. And it doesn't, to me, it's brilliant if it's successful and you get all these, outcomes. But it's equally as important as if it's not successful that you share your knowledge and what you've learned from it and what you'll do differently next time. And you'll get credit for that. A little bit like the other things I just said with evidence, testimonials, validations, super duper important. The great thing about those things is that you can take screenshots of those and they become images. So put them, collate them into one image. And so you can get all those extra words as testimonials and validations as an image. And if I say anything wrong, Rebecca, you tell me off and say, no, you can't do that. But certainly that's the way I would be doing it. If you've got those lovely testimonials or reviews and things like that, I would be saving them as a collated image and referring to them. So you cut down your words, be a little bit smarter about the way you present it. And the other thing, that is, so for you guys to write these applications, it's a lot of work. And we all recognise it's an enormous amount of work. But for me to actually read these applications and all the judges that I know here, it literally, I remember last year, I almost didn't do it again this year because of this. I had 6 weekends of my life was gone, just gone. Every day, Saturday and Sunday, reading applications. Now you can imagine how boring that can get if the applications are not written with passion. So please put your passion for your business in that application, because I tell you what, as a judge, it makes our life so much more enjoyable and it makes us think higher of your application. So please put your passion in those words. Alrighty, so let's talk about these things in more detail. So I said about images, right? So images can be things like maps. So when you're describing where your location is, I don't necessarily know every place in South Australia. Like the other day, I even just asked my husband, how do I get to Littlehampton? Because I've been there many times, but I've forgotten where Littlehampton is, right? I admit that that's probably a stupid example because it makes me look silly, but, it's true, right? We don't always remember exactly where things are. So, or particularly if you're out in the country, really great to share maps and to show your location and where how far it is from the city and all those sorts of things. Things like infographics. So does everyone know what an infographic is? It's like a picture representation of outcomes, right? So let's say, for instance, you're talking about some really great statistics on things that you've done. You could do it as an infographic and it would be much more interesting to people rather than putting it all into words. And also use as an image instead of using words. There are things like graphs, photographs, collages. So like I was talking about the testimonials and things like that, put them into a collage of all different testimonials. Use those as images to cut down on words so that you can use more words in your application that show off how amazing your business is versus using other people's words like testimonials. So that's about images. This is how I suggest that you use your tables. And so particularly in the marketing section, so you might have, let's say you have 3 or 4 different target markets, right? And so you might have your primary target market, your secondary, and your I want to have. So there's 3 different types there. You may have a different strategy for each target market. And if that's the case, this is an awesome way to represent and make our lives very easy to understand how you've actually thought and used your strategies and the outcomes in a table. It just makes it so much more easier to read, and it makes it very logical in thinking and writing when you're doing it yourself as well. Sometimes what will happen is that there's some, you might have 3 different target markets, making that up, and there might be some things that are common across all. And so you could put, these are the common things across there, and then we did this specifically for our primary target market, secondary and third. So you can work it out on all sorts of different ways so that you reduce the number of words so you don't not repeating yourself like we did social media for primary target 1, 2 and 3. Yeah, well, if you did it differently, absolutely put that in there. But if you did the same across all 3 target markets and then you had different strategies, marketing strategies for those to attract those markets, then distinguish them separately. Does that actually make any sense at all? Great, thank you. So that's tables. Now, This is the most important and critical thing that I really want you to consider very deeply. In anything to do with your business or anything to do with marketing, the number one thing is to know your target market. And I like to use the word intimately. I know it sounds a little strange, but the more you know your target market, the better your marketing will always be, because you know where they are, who they are, what they do, what life stage they're at, what do they eat, what do they drink, where do they sleep, how many 2.3 children do they have? Do they have dogs? Do they have cats? You know, what do they read? What do they do? When you know all of those things, you can really be very, very mindful about the marketing tactics that you take to reach them. And so it's really important to me, and one of the things I will want to know very clearly is who is your target market. So it's not just about their age, it's not just about where they live, it's about where they are in their life stage. What do they do when they travel? What do they like to see? Where do they go? What experiences are they looking for? Do they walk? Do they skydive? Do they, lounge in on a weekend like I like to do? What do they do? Where do they get their purchase information from? So these are some of the things that, I would like you to consider when you're thinking about your target market. So who are your customers? It's not just, it's like, how old are they? But please don't just think that that's enough. And so I remember reading an application last year that fundamentally said, we have males 35 plus who are blue collar workers who live in the city. Now that's the old day. That's the old days of marketing. Now with digital marketing, you have to know where they're at their buying stage and what they want to do, in their lives and their experiences. So you need to know them a lot more deeply than that. So this is kind of like the old stuff. Then once you know who your target market is, well, I'd like to know, how do you know it's them? So what is your anecdotal evidence to say, this is my target market? We can all go, this is from our gut feel, but I'm hoping that you would be able to get some statistics from your sales data, or some statistics from your online presence, or your statistics from when people just come in the door and you actually, ask them questions about where they come from and who are they and stuff like that. So it's about knowing who your target market is and having evidence about that. This is probably the most important part about any target market, is what motivates them. And so if you know that your target market are people that purchase their travel online, they don't go to an agent, they don't ask their friends, they just want to do their own research, then it would make perfect sense that your marketing is all directed towards you being first on Google, right? And so this is why it's really important that you understand what motivates your target market to book an experience, what motivates them to travel, what makes them want to go where your facility is, what inspires them, what interests them. Because what then happens is, if I read your application and you say, my target market loves to, does all their research, I'm making all of this up, does all their research online, they love to go where they can be a dog-friendly environment, blah, blah, blah. And then I look at your website and then I look at your social media and I look at that and there's no dogs and there's nothing on there and you're not even ranking on Google, I'm going to question that. I'm going to go, well, are you really doing all the things that you need to be doing to be able to attract your target market? And so I guess it's not just about what's in your application, it's actually what you're actually doing to your business to attract those people, what motivates them, how do they find you? Tell us, how do they find you? And what do you do to make sure that they can find you? 5 minutes, I've got a 5 minute one. If you want any help with target market, that is a document that you can find on the Purple Giraffe website. Don't worry, you will not be spammed at all. You can just download it. It's just a tool that's, really makes you think about who your target market is. It talks about sociographic, occasional, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's an example of target market. I think I've done that to death. The other thing that's super important is if you have any statistics from South Australian Tourism Commission, from your local industry, and your business is aligned with those statistics, please say that. So, if our local tourism industry body says that, we're targeting millennials because we're a fun place. And I'll go, you can go, yes, well, we actually agree with that because we're a fun place too, and we agree with their statistics or their target and the 2030 tourism plan. Okay, so now that you know who your target market is, and you know obviously what your business is all about, it's super duper important that you then identify what marketing strategies you have adopted or taken on, or the strategy you've adopted and the tactics that you've implemented to actually secure that market. So is it your social media? Is it your digital, as in your website, emails, Google, those sorts of things? Look at whether you've actually developed anything cool and funky like an app or an interactive system or an online purchasing system or anything like that. Any public relations you've done. So if you get any media, that's an image, right? If you've got something in the paper, you can put in a photograph and show us of all the advertising that you might have done. Same with if you've done any online advertising, you can show us the advertising as an image, but then put the stats in of what you've achieved and who you've been able to reach. Relationship marketing, super important. So who have you aligned with to help with your marketing? So are you aligned with the local tourism body? Are you aligned with any other business in town? Are you aligned with, you know, another business in a different region, because, you know, you're cross promoting each other? So those sorts of relationships, please don't forget to put them in there and don't take them for granted. They're super important. Again, if there's any strategies for your local tourism bodies or SATC or the tourism plan, please put them in. So we align with this strategy and this is what we do to be aligned with this strategy. These are the tactics that we've engaged. And of course, then, now, so about COVID-19, is that still in the application issue? Yes, because there was still some issues. So please put in there, if you have done anything differently because of COVID-19, if you've had any shutdown days, and these are the things that we did, like on shutdown days, instead of falling up into a ball in a coma, you know, that we actually went away and wrote a strategy on our marketing plan, or we put a thing online to say, you know, that we're open these days and please come back, or whatever it is that you did, please be very descriptive about that, because that helps us to understand how you've adapted, I guess. Then it's important, of course, and so we did this on the table, right? Target market, strategy, outcomes. So then it's really important to go, okay, these are the things that we did. These are the results that we got from it. And again, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. No one cares. Don't hide it. Just tell us it didn't work out, but these are the things we learned from it. This is what we did differently. And so if it increased your social media traffic, the stats are all in there, in your insights behind your social media. If it increased your website traffic, I hope that you have Google Analytics and you can show us those sorts of things. If it increased your number of bookings, all those sorts of things, they are evidence that your marketing efforts have worked. Validation. So validation is all about other people saying, these people were great, reviews, testimonies, we had a really wonderful time, books in venues to say, you know, write your comments on stuff like that, whatever it is that you do. Any validation is super duper great, because what it says is that you're not just saying you're great, they think you're great. Okay, smash that one out. Okay, has anyone got any questions? Yes, no? Good luck. Thank you.
Morning all. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dougal McFuzzlebutt from RAA. So I was also lucky enough to be a first-time judge last year, And it is an amazing experience, but yes, it is a lot of work as well. So I'm going to reiterate the fact of making it something that we want to read. Although I do work in tourism and I do know a lot of your businesses, I don't know everything about your business. Tell me the story that you want me and for other people to know. I think it's a very big thing is to always tell a story and tell your story. So I'm going to talk to you about the less fun stuff, but the very important stuff, which is customer service. For me, I used to train people in customer service back in the old days, I call it, when I was working in IT back at Hewlett Packard. And they were certainly not the days I enjoyed the most, but they certainly gave me a great foundation to talk about this subject. So customers are obviously the foundation of every business. Without them, we have no business. So it's extremely important to understand how you provide customer service. And there's so many different aspects to it that sometimes we forget. And that's what we'll go through today. So it's not always just about the people who are buying a product or a service from you. We also have to remember that our staff are also our customers, and that's internal customer service. Very, very big part. And I think especially now, it's an even bigger part when staff are so hard to either get or to retain. So how do you provide quality visitor experiences and demonstrate inclusive practices? So we'll go over a few things, and this one basically requires you to outline the practices you've put in place to ensure the delivery of high quality customer service throughout your journey as a business. And so obviously one of the key things here is first impressions, and first impressions count. We know that, and we're told that time and time again. So what is it that you actually do to set these first impressions on customers? You know, and don't think about the fact of when they turn up at your business. This could be the first impression of your website, the first impression of when they see your business in an OTA. So with the likes of REA Travel or Booking.com, you know, what are the photos they see? What's the feeling they get? You know, then it's things such as, you know, signage at or to the venue. You know, that is a very big thing of understanding where they're going. The maps you provide to find the greeting you provide when they first arrive, and even the pre-visit info that you provide to them so that they know who to contact, how to contact them, when they should arrive, when they should leave. It's about giving them a whole kind of idea of what to expect before they're even there. So it's almost telling your story to them in a way that they know what to expect. Another big part of customer service is the feedback. So I suppose this is more the post-visit side of customer service. And I think we've all come to see how social media and the internet has changed the way that feedback is handled. And there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there, and that can be a big business as well. But it's how you manage that can really make the biggest difference. So, you know, how do you collect feedback in the first place? Is it through Google? Is it through Facebook? You know, some people, especially accommodations, still have books that you can write comments into, and it's amazing. I like to have a read through those when I go there. So don't ever think that that's an old practice that's gone. It's still a lovely thing that people do get to see and read, and it shows that it's not a fake review. They're pretty genuine, and I think it's something that, you know, we can still hold on to and still do. So it's nice little touches. You know, how do you respond to feedback? So I think a big thing with that is the tone you use, but it's also the frequency. So how often are you actually looking at it and responding? One thing that I suppose I came across last year, but also throughout my own travels, is looking at reviews online and seeing negative comments, but then seeing no response from the business whatsoever. That goes a long way for me deciding whether I want to go there and be there. So tell people, or tell the judges, I suppose, what it is that you do, and do you check them daily? Do you check them weekly? I think the general turnaround you should have is no more than 48 hours, but 24 hours is a good time frame to be trying to respond. I understand that we're all very short-staffed, but it's something that I think is a very important part of what people see when they first initially look at booking. So it's a good story to tell. How do you deal with that negative feedback as well? So once again, I suppose coming back to the tone that you use, and tell people the story of, maybe it's the fact that you offer them a discount on another stay, or whatever it is that you do. We're all different in the way that we handle it. And I think we need to also understand that doing that, we can sometimes set a precedent that people think they're going to get a freebie if they give you negative feedback. So just tell your story on how you manage that, because I think it's positive feedback is an easy one. Negative feedback or criticism is obviously the hardest part to deal with and manage. And give examples. So, if you do have screenshots, screenshots will help judges understand what you do. So what you say in your response versus having some actual photos or screenshots will help us kind of take that to that understanding that next level as well. So for businesses that have significant disruption during the qualifying period, you should consider how you provide quality customer service experiences in the alternative ways in which you operate. Communicated to customers during the changing restrictions, kept customers informed, etc. When I was a judge last year, I didn't think I'd be standing here this time this year still talking about COVID and how it disrupted businesses. But sadly, it did. And I think during one of the biggest times of, I suppose peak travel within intrastate travel especially, and even interstate and inbound travel. So, we all know that there were disruptions during that period. The key part about that is, how did you let people know what was happening? Did you, keep people up to date on social media? The number of businesses that I saw that went very, very quiet during that time, you are still a business, you're still operating, so you do need to keep people informed and tell that story. Was it sending e-news to say, we'd love to welcome you back, we're hoping to be open soon? Letting people know what you were doing. You were maybe, you were blocking out days each side to allow for that deep clean to happen with accommodation. Things like that give people the confidence of what you're doing to keep them safe. So it is a very big story. Little things like that you might just see as your general operations can be a big thing to customers, to your property or to your experience. Rescheduling and credits, refunds. How did you keep people informed? And certainly the work that I've done with zoos, it's almost a day-to-day routine of rescheduling and providing credits, and people that do get COVID can't attend. So what were you doing to, I suppose, support them? Were you providing a credit in the hope that they would come back? Were you providing refunds in the hope that, if that's what they asked for, that at least then they would come back and see you in the future? Or were you just allowing reschedules for maybe a couple of weeks' time when they were better? It's something that we all had to do. It's just a matter of how you did it. When you all opened again, what did you do to let people know? It's obviously hard to just go out and have a reopening party or have something on radio to say that you've reopened again. I think we all went through significant changes at the same time. So, were you constantly on social media? Were you sending messages to those people who had to cancel and keeping them up to date with when they could reschedule and what was on offer? Were you sending e-news during the time you were shut, but then letting people know that you were reopened for business again as well? And certainly some businesses had to change the way they did that. So once again, sorry to keep bringing you up, Jake, but zoos had to cancel some of the products that they were offering. So, and then gradually bring them back. So it's about keeping people informed of what you're doing as a business. It's that information that keeps people engaged with you and wanting them to come back to you. So tell that story of what you did and how you did it. And I suppose going back to what I just said about, changing the product offering as well, where people offered an alternative, where they just told that, sorry, that's cancelled, you can't do it. And I think that this is where it becomes important to give people alternatives and let them choose. So tell the story of what you allowed. So rather than if you were just telling people this is cancelled, it's done, don't bring anything to give them an alternative to keep them engaged and coming back to your business during that period. As I said before, it's the way that you told them, the way you interacted, the way you engaged. Tell that story about, what were you using? Was it social media based? Was it SMS? Was it emails? Was it, I suppose, anything? And if you were using such things as we've got Adelaide in the room, I know that they've been amazing with being able to get out and support businesses to tell those stories to get people engaged as well. So outline how you committed to quality customer service throughout all areas of the business. So this could include staff training, service principles, policies, staff rewards, systems. So this is where I was speaking before about understanding that the consumer who purchases your product or service isn't your only customer. It's that internal customer service that we need to really be aware of as well. So staff are just so difficult to come by now. We know that across the board in hospitality and tourism and a lot of other industries, but certainly within those two, they are really, really difficult. So retaining staff, how have you retained staff during a time when it has been difficult? Maybe their hours were cut, maybe there wasn't enough work, and were you able to do it? I know that when the first came around, a lot of hospitality, there were some really key players like Chris Jarma that said, well, I'm not going to use the likes of Uber Eats anymore. I'm going to get my front of house staff to do the deliveries for us. That's an amazing story of how he not only stayed open, but he kept his staff in working for him as well. And retaining that was a big part of what that business was. And he offered people a 15% discount because he was not paying the 30% to Uber Eats anymore. So that's a great story that I always remember. And I think things like that of what you've done to be able to work with your staff and keep them on, keep them motivated. That's another big, how do you keep people motivated on a day-to-day basis? And that's not even just around COVID. So when you're doing the same thing each and every day, how do you always tell that story and provide that service without feeling like a robot? We need to be able to manage expectations, not only of ourselves, but other people. And when you are managing staff, that can sometimes be a difficult thing when you're potentially not motivated yourself. So tell us what you did. Were you having monthly staff gatherings? Were you having a staff reward if they did something outstanding? If they were receiving, exemplary feedback after a customer visit? Were you doing something to provide that feedback and recognition to them? I think as staff, you're always looking to know that you're doing a good job, and that's sometimes often hard to get. Getting the feedback from consumers is great. Getting it back from your peers and management is even greater. So tell those stories of what you've done to do that. Engaging with those staff, were you keeping them up to date? Obviously, there was a lot of changes, especially during those COVID periods, of how were you keeping them informed of different things that were happening during that period of cleaning and those different practices and protocols. So weekly meetings, daily meetings, changes in format, changes in scheduling. So very, very important to tell us every aspect of what you did to make that customer experience, both internally and externally, so great. So points of customer engagement. So, the touch points, I think I spoke about this before. Tell us about how you interact with people from word go. And as I said, this is very much about what your website tells, because that's where they'll first get the opinion. But once they have booked, you call them as a bit of a touch point and give that interaction. Do you meet them at the property and say hello to them so they've got that face-to-face recognition? Do you give them a little hand? Those little things along the way. What is it that you do that makes people feel really, I suppose, part of your business and connected to your business, and make them want to come back again next time? And obviously the need for information. So once again, how much do you tell them? How frequently do you tell them? There can be an oversource of information. There can also be an undersource. So monitoring and assessing customer service to ensure the continued quality delivery. So collecting data, there's spoken about that through either Facebook or Review Pro or Google reviews, etc. But what do you do with that information? So how do you actually go through that just by yourself? Do you go through it as a team? Do you break down the good versus the criticism or the negative feedback? And then how do you manage that to ensure that that doesn't happen again? That's a very big part, especially with that negative side. Outweighing those two and not taking it too personally, but understanding that every consumer has a different need. So what is it that you do that makes sure that you're using that information in a way to improve your business ongoing? So consider how you actively encourage feedback and how feedback is used to improve the visitor experience. So with this, I suppose, do you look at things rather than waiting for them to provide you feedback online? And this is something that comes up quite a lot, is the fact that people will tend to not leave positive feedback as much as what they're willing to leave negative feedback. And they'll do that post-event. They won't do it at let's say a restaurant in this case. At a restaurant, they're less likely to tell you or the chef or the front of house staff face-to-face. They'll go away and do it later. In the way of accommodation, sometimes if it's a B&B, they don't have that ability to be actively face-to-face with someone after they stay, they check out and they leave. So I suppose with that, do you send a post-visit follow-up? Do you send them an email asking for their feedback actively? Do you give them a call? Anything like that? Provide a case study, and this is where having actually make a massive difference to the judges who are reading this, to understand what you are getting and how you're getting it. And don't give us all the positive stuff. I mean, we'd love to think it's all positive. If you do have some examples of some criticism, please provide that, but also advise what you've done and show that you've done something in the plan to turn that around. So as part of your delivery of quality visitor experiences, you need to demonstrate how to consider visitors' special and specific needs and recognise the needs of a diverse community. So obviously we're seeing diversity up to the forefront, which is great because we know that there is the diversity out there, but we're acknowledging that now. And there's so many different areas that can be. I mean, it could be as easy as dietary. Well, dietary is not really all that easy, unfortunately. But it could be engaging with the LGBTQI community. I hope I got that acronym right. It's a mouthful these days. Disability with properties being able to be accessible as well. But also cultures. Obviously, when we do have workshops and presentations, we have that welcome to country. What is it that you do to connect to these diverse groups and how you engage with them. Are you inclusive without going too far? What is it that you do that makes everyone feel like they want to be part of that? Are you connected to any particular groups? You know, is it the fact that you're tied in with a festival or a sporting group or anything like that? Provide examples, provide photos. I can't stipulate that enough, is photos. As a photographer, I know that a photo to me tells so many different stories, and you can write it down. If you can visually represent it, it makes it so much easier. So please provide photos that tell your specific story, and screenshots. So take screenshots of what you're doing on social media, etc. And I think I just covered that then. So provide examples of what you've done to cater for these special needs or diversity of, you know, even if it's signage, and take a photo of the signage. If you've got a ramp that makes it accessible to your business, show that, talk about that. It's not that it's a small thing, it's actually quite a big thing, because it means that you're allowing more and more people to access your business. And once again, I think I've already touched on this. I've really had in my mind of what was coming up. Use examples, use graphics, enhance. Tell the story visually and in script. Finally, good luck. It's an exciting time, and the awards night is well worth all the pain you go through for writing this submission. We love reading them, but please tell the story. Make us feel like we want to keep reading that without a copy. It's great. Enjoy. Good luck.
Good luck to you too.
Hi guys, we're on the tail end now, and I'm here to present probably one of the most challenging sections, which has been reintroduced this year. Now, just to go to the slides, Beck, is it just the arrows to the right? Recognise a few of you. Hi Amanda. Anyway, first of all, just a bit of a self-introduction. My name is Mike Hamilton. This is my second year judging for the South Australian Tourism Awards. I'm currently a Communications and Engagement Advisor for the Department for Environment and Water, looking after projects predominantly for national parks, which is all centred around the visitor experience. I have quite an extensive background in tourism. I studied late, but started my career back in early 2000s, managing the Borough Visitor Information Centre. That was my first real gig, before going down to the city of Victoria Harbour, where I was doing tourism marketing for the local government, and then went to the Adelaide Hills and ventured into business management for Cleveland Wildlife Park, and that got me into the Department for Environment and Water, where I was there for about 8 years. And then I decided to make a move, and I went to Victoria. So I've just come back from Victoria from about 8 years, and I was actually in Beck's role running the Victorian Tourism Awards for the Victorian Tourism Industry Council for 4 of those years, and then a quick stint with Parks Victoria and then Visit Victoria, and then full circle back with Department for Environment and Water. So that's a bit about me. So what I wanted to talk to you today is around question 5 or section 5, which is responsible tourism. Now, this is a section that's been in the awards previously, but has been taken out over the past couple of years due to the changes with the program with COVID and so forth. It is a section where a lot of entrants get to, and they've lost their energy, their determination to try and get through their application, and sometimes that really shows, and the judges go, oh, they've just gone from a really great beginning of their submission to this section, which can be quite challenging, and also you might not have the time committed that you did when you first started your application. So It's a section that defines your business's role in the community and its impact to the environment. It's out of 10 points, which is actually 5 points less than the other sections, but still equally as important. By looking at this section probably first could actually mean you could have an advantage over another applicant who also loses steam. So if you were to look at this section first, start understanding what is expected of you in this section, so you don't get to the end of your writing process and go, oh my God, I haven't thought about any of this. If you start after today just thinking about this section and start collecting examples and responses, that's really going to put you well ahead of the game. So what the judges will be looking for is the business goals that you've explained in the beginning of your application to flow through to this section. So it's not, judges wouldn't want to be introduced to some new initiatives or thinking around your business in this section, which hasn't already sort of been talked about in the business planning section. So make sure that there's continuity from the beginning right through to this section. And what they'll actually be looking for, which probably has been already explained today, is those tangible examples and evidence. So avoid sweeping statements like, oh yeah, we're committed to the environment. Well, everybody kind of is these days, or hopefully they are, but you really need to back that up with some tangible examples or evidence of some nature. So what I would suggest from today going forward, once you've got a bit of an understanding around this section, is do a bit of an audit on your business and start, have a file on your computer where you start throwing, your energy bills and things that are related to the environment or your involvement in the community into that file, which you can draw on at a later stage. So question 5A, which is out of 3 points. So how does your business celebrate the environment? I like to use that way of thinking of it. It's not just about your responsibility with the environment, but how you celebrate it. Is it a commitment that your business really has and that you actually share with your customers? So you might actually have, if you're an accommodation operator, you might have some sort of statement in the room which demonstrates your commitment to the environment. And that really, I guess, tells a lot around the nature of your business's commitment. And as I said earlier, start auditing your business for consumption and impact in the environment. So what the judges will want to see is, has there been any initiatives or have you put any systems in place to either minimise or reduce your energy impact? And a great way of really looking at that plainly and simply up front is getting your bills from your electricity, your water, your gas, anything that actually has an impact on the environment, and look at them on a 12-month basis and just to see, has there been any reduction? And if there has, start thinking about what it has been that you put in place to actually reduce that. And it might be, anything from changing your light bulbs to LED to installing rainwater tanks to flush your toilets, or, reducing paper in some shape or form. Minimising waste is a really great way of actually demonstrating your commitment to the environment as well. Just talk about the ways that you do that. And every business is different, and regional businesses are different. They have harder ways of recycling, they have harder ways of, getting rid of household waste and so forth. So, think really broadly, and it's not just about electricity, water and gas, it's other things as well which are unique to your business, and that's what's going to make the section shine for you and make you stand out from the crowd by breathing the essence of who you are into this section. It's your unique selling points. Maybe it's a way, like maybe you're a straw bale property which has different ways of heating and cooling, so you can talk about that and tell a story. Don't just go, we did this, we did that, electricity's this and it was that. tell a bit of a story that judges want to be entertained about how you actually, can contribute or celebrate the environment. Conservation initiatives are really good. And so think about your gardening or your landscapes, the plants that you have in your property, or the ways that you're educating your customers. They're all environmental responsibilities that we share as a community or through your business. So it might be that you've got gardens to share with your guests. You might have some notes in there. Please keep on the paths because we've got really rare species of this plant in this area. It attracts this animal or bird life. They're the stories that judges are going to get enlightened with in this section. One thing I'd like you to also think about is if you're really struggling with some unique examples, or if you're early in your business and there's not a lot of comparables for you to actually demonstrate, start thinking about what would you like to achieve in this area going forward and into the future. Start highlighting your long-term goals and talk about the planning that you're doing, because planning is actually work and is actually achieving in your business. It also demonstrates to the judges you have a commitment and a dedication to the environment. So planning is really critical. Talk about what you're setting up for the future. And if you decide to go on with the Tourism Awards next year, you've already got a great way of comparing results. Finally, again, if you're struggling, another great way to start your audit process is jumping on the web. A lot of government websites have an area dedicated to sustainability or conservation, or ways to be environmentally friendly, reducing your environmental footprint. Just jump on there, look at what they're telling you to do or what they suggest you to do, how they can help you. You might find that you're already doing a whole heap of these things, which they've just become day-to-day business for you. And so you naturally forget to include them in this section. So it's a great way of actually making sure that you're sort of covering off everything. I've got LED light conversion, installation of rainwater tanks, laundering processes, eliminating printing, and graphs. Using graphs in this section is a really great way of also demonstrating how certain areas of impact are managed and represented. So question 5A, so it's 5A and 5B, sorry, yes, yep, talks about your environmental and, sorry, that was question 5A. We're on to question 5B, economic responsibility. So this is our 4 points, and it asks you to demonstrate what you've been, how have you made an impact on the local economy, and what are your social responsibilities that your business plays in the tourism industry. And at this point, I probably should also just remind you that sometimes entrants get so caught up in this section talking about the specific of what's being asked of you. You've just got to remember to add that tourism element in here, because they are tourism awards, not business awards. So any way you can talk about how any of these questions relate back to the tourism industry is really critical. So just remember, tell a story and add that tourism flair. So the economic responsibilities asks you, how does your business contribute to the local economy and the community? And what is the flow and effect of your business activity? And I guess a way to really stop and think, oh, that sounds like a really big ask. I guess a way that I used to try and explain to businesses how to sort of start with this is like, if your business was to cease operations tomorrow, what would be the flow and effect to your neighbouring businesses or the community? And like a prime example is like an event organiser. And let's think of like the Clipsal, which is coming back this year. When the Clipsal ended, imagine the flow and effect that would have had to a whole heap of businesses in Adelaide, from food providers to accommodation to transport, just even retail alone. it has a flow-on effect. So think about how your business has that same sort of impact, particularly in local or regional areas. You might be some sort of unique attraction or unique accommodation, which is a draw card for visitors. And if you were to close your doors, well, suddenly there's a downfall in visitors going to other attractions or buying groceries and so forth. So that's one way of just sort of to think about how your business has an economic responsibility or plays a role in the economy. Where else do your guests spend your money? When that's that flow-on effect I was talking about. If you can, try and see if you can find out how much your guests spend in the local economy, and then try and relate that back to how you play that role in that from maybe accommodation sector or attraction sector. And talk about how you collaborate with your fellow business operators or the community. And that might be like developing some sort of package. It might be for a specific market that doesn't work for your area or region. So you've buddied up with your neighbouring restaurant and attraction and your accommodation. So you packaged it up to make it a really easy process to attract visitors into your region. So talk about that. Remember, tell the story. In this section, you might want to add some quotes or testimonials which really support those claims. And talk about how, I guess, you market your business, which also helps the economy. So you're portraying not just only your business, you might be portraying a destination in itself as well. So you're doing the work not only for yourself, but you're doing it for the other businesses by sharing that profile of why you should come and visit your business or the local area. So that's really my last point. How does your business add to your local area's profile as a place to live, and more importantly, a destination to visit? Covered off everything there. And finally, just, how do you make that dollar stretch longer in the region? What is it that you offer to help get visitors in the regions to stay longer and spend more? Social responsibilities. That, I guess, wants you to look at what is your engagement in the community, and that might be you're actually involved in a local committee, which is its objective is to attract staff into the region or to promote the region. Just talk about what is your business doing in the local community that has an effect for everyone. You might be actually part of an organising committee for a community event, or if you're not, maybe you're actually sponsoring local events. You might actually have a sign up on the local football oval, which promotes your business, but also demonstrates your commitment back to the community and sporting groups survive. In this section, you might like to even talk about your staff profile, how you employ locally, or how you use local suppliers, so not reaching out further afield, and you're actually using the community to help shape your business or help deliver your business. And that could be from maintenance workers through to interior decorators to graphic designers doing your brochures. So think about all your service providers in this regard, and ask yourself, are they community people, and am I supporting them? And you might be able to go, yeah, pretty much 90% of my business supports local. We have a 100-kilometre radius parameter, and we try not to go beyond that. Obviously, that you can't always meet those goals and objectives, but by telling the judges that is what you're aiming to achieve really shows your commitment in that section. It's also really good to show passion in your response in this area, and that will show leadership. So talk about yourself as a community leader. What are you doing which is probably a little bit above and beyond maybe what most businesses might be doing? You might provide a volunteer opportunity, even if you're a small business and you've got 1 or 2 volunteer opportunities. It might be a visitor centre and you're predominantly run by volunteers. So to talk about those sort of things. And if you haven't got volunteers, maybe it's mentoring another business, mentoring school students looking to get into the tourism industry. Mentoring is really critical for the longevity and for a region or a local area to thrive, making sure that everybody is supported. And the best people to do that is from business to business or community to community. Covers that section. Next on to ethical responsibility. So this actually, from my knowledge with the Tourism Awards, looks like a new section, really important one, and it's great to see it included. So I guess this is really asking your understanding around what is your understanding of connection from the First Nations. And I guess the way to respond to this is kind of set the scene of how your business has been set up, whether it's a new business, something that's operating out of something historically significant to the local area. It might not go back to the First Nations perspective, but you can certainly talk about the land in which you operate and the respects and understanding of that First Nation mob, and recognising, that they were the first people on the land in which you operate, and then go on to maybe the more built heritage side of your business, or any introduced cultures that come along the way. I guess this section will be really looking around authenticity to your business and the unique selling points, which makes you very special, based around where you operate and the influences that you take from the environment, from a social and environmental perspective, and input that into your product, and share that with your customers. If you're struggling in this area, start monitoring your news, see what the local community is talking about, what matters, what things matter in your community, from local heritage to the First Nations people, and like whether it's built heritage or natural heritage, revegetation programs, all of that is kind of like an ethical responsibility. You might be in an area where there's significant amount of wildlife being hit by cars, and maybe you're committed to wildlife groups, revegetation programs or committees that look at trying to save or do the best that you can in representing those things that I've talked about. Local government or your regional marketing bodies are also really great resources to dig a bit deeper, and see how they celebrate these areas. Yes, just start thinking about how the heritage side of your business relates back to the local area that you operate. Finally, that's all the questions in this section. I just wanted to sort of leave you with some of my tips, just through my experience in the awards program. What I would suggest, and it might have already been covered, sorry, I sort of jumped in, but plan all your responses by looking at all of the questions first. So don't just start section by section. Really read through all what's going to be asked of you, so then you can start planning a holistic point of view and have that common thread. So nothing's a surprise to the judge. It's that story I was telling you about. They just want to be in line. They want it to be an easy read, and they want to have a smile. They want to make it funny, put some really personality in it, is what I'm trying to say. Clear and succinct. Really, maybe get somebody else to read it, finish, or read sections, to make sure that what you write, other people understand, because sometimes what we write means something to us, but means something different to somebody else. There is limited words, so try not to repeat yourself. Save examples for just one section. Don't use the same examples if you can. Sometimes they do cross over and have different meanings, so that's fine, but if you've got a multitude of examples, choose the best ones for each section. Allocate time and block it out. I know of entrants that have Tourism Tuesdays. They've got it in their diary. They know that between 9 and 11 is 2 hours spent on their application. Back up your statements with relevant data. Again, the judges are looking for evidence or examples. Avoid those sweeping statements because they really don't score well. And finally, share the load between your team. This isn't all on your shoulders. And if you're like a sole operator, and there might be some of you here today, work with your local community. You know, like get together and have a morning tea, and where you start like talking about the questions together and going, you know, what sort of things are you going to put in this section? And you know, if I'm struggling in this area, have you got any advice? But for those that have bigger teams, you know, start divvying out bits of the application process to your team. Like, you know, Josephine, you're going to look for testimonials and quotes. Peter, you're going to get stats on electricity. You know, like start sharing the load because otherwise it can be quite overwhelming. Talked about planning before, but planning is work achieved, so include that even if the outcomes aren't yet to be realised. And finally, number 8, read the tips. There are tips in there, and they really help you start your responses. So that's probably the first step. And one final point to note: just remember you're entering the Australian Tourism Awards. I know that you're representing South Australia here, but by putting your mindset on that these are actually national awards, you should be writing it as if you're entering the Australian Awards. Because if you win, you don't have to do anything. Your entry goes straight through to be judged nationally. So you want to be at that calibre of a national standard. So if you write it with that frame of mind, it's going to really, you know, be worthwhile to not only at a state level and who you might be competing against, but also your competitors interstate. Any questions? And I don't know if you had anything else to contribute.
Oh, that's great. That's, yeah.
It's a bit hard because that section's not been in it for a while, and I had to sort of. It is a challenging section, so I guess I can only reiterate: just don't leave that one to the end. Start chipping away at that one earlier than later.
I think that's a great tip to tackle that one first, especially since it wasn't last year, and it is something that we almost comment on year after year. It's so often people lose steam in that last question if they've approached it in that linear fashion that I was saying about. So if you actually start writing this one first, you'll give yourselves a really good advantage. So, yeah.
So that wraps it up. So I'll just finalise with a few key dates. So great that you're all here. You're utilising the nominee support that we have on offer. If you haven't booked in already, feel free to email me and book in a time on either Tuesday the 28th of June or Tuesday the 19th of July for a half-hour viewing of the London Dominance Market winning submission from last year. The Tuesday the 28th is booking up pretty quickly, so get in as soon as you can. We then have another workshop, which is an online webinar, which will be on the 30th of June, and that will be on how to actually tell your story successfully. Again, going back to that passion and really, you know, turning into storytelling. You know, you're writing a submission, but at the end of the day, you're telling the story of your business. So it's really important to use those skills. And also a bit of layout support. So I'll just go back into the portal and show you just some of the functionalities in terms of building upload, using headings, tables, things like that. Ask the Expert sessions, they're a really great resource for you to, again, utilise. We have a booking link on our website, and then I'll get in touch with you to book in a half-hour slot. with Amanda, or our chair of judges, Michael Guinness, and they'll be meeting with you half an hour. Now, please note it is a requirement that a week before this, if you can just send any questions and any work that you've done on your submission to myself, to pass on to those people that you may be meeting, just as, you know, just to make sure that you're on top of it and to make the most of your session as well. Otherwise, in the past, we have had people rock up with nothing at all to show, so we really want you to make the most of that session and make the most of the time with an expert. Finally, we've also got the draft submissions, which again, are due on the 13th of July. So if you have a bit of a draft written up by then, you're more than welcome to go into the portal and upload it there for a judge to review that in 2 weeks and give you some feedback on that. And of course, the final due date is the 10th of August. So it's all creeping up, but just make sure, that everything's in place by the 10th of August. Your consumer ratings, I'd just like to point out again that that's based on the qualifying periods, all your reviews that we collate. Anything past the 30th of June isn't included in your consumer rating. And your site visits and online reviews, they're done between mid-July and late September. So if that applies to your category that you're nominated in, that's something that you'll just need to keep an eye on as well. Yes, Georgia?
Question. Do all submissions have a site visit, and if so, will we be aware when this will be prior to the visit?
So not all categories have a site visit. So I will be doing the slides on this recording as well, and there was a slide previously that tells you which categories don't have a site visit included, and also if you've nominated, then you should have your category questions set with the outline of the site visit involved as well. No, it doesn't apply to every category, so make sure you're aware of that in terms of what you're nominated in. Yes, you are aware if there is a site visit involved, again, a judge will contact you and set up a time to meet with you, so it's not like a secret shopper or anything like that. Thank you. So are there any final questions before I wrap up? Well, just a couple of final notes is make sure that you, again, go back to the nominee support on the TICSA website under the Tourism Awards tab. There's probably about just over 10 documents that outline heaps of help in terms of getting your submission in place. And one of the biggest documents in that is the entrant guidebook, where we outline all the key submission dates, the nominee support. We run you through how to actually write a submission. It's quite a lengthy document. And there's also a bit of an outline on where you should be at this point in time in terms of how much you should have written by now. So really good to make sure that you tap into that resource. Again, we've got a number of nominee support that you can access as soon as possible. The workshop has been recorded and the slides will be distributed to everyone who's come here today or nominated as well. I think some of the key things I've taken away from today from some of our wonderful past judges is that holistic approach to writing your submission. So making sure rather than that linear approach, starting off with your responsible tourism and just getting all those key ideas out before you kind of get stuck into it. Just thinking about at the end of the process, that judge or the 3 judges that are looking at your submission and potentially the judges at national level, that you're clear, that there's no surprises, that it's easy for a judge to read, and just make sure that you try to have to remove yourself from your business in a way and write for someone that's potentially never heard of your business, your vision, and make sure that's in the back of your mind when you're writing. Another big takeaway I found: use evidence, use tables, use images to back up. So it's not just all about the writing. Obviously, it's a big part, but any evidence really helps. And again, get help. So like I was saying, if you have a team, make sure that you're using your team. I love the idea of the Tourism Tuesdays and setting aside dedicated time, because it's going to be August before you know it. Set aside time every week, if not every day, to work on this. And if you are a sole trader, then of course you've got myself. You've got, I'm sure, work with people, and someone not in tourism, just to get them to read your submission as well, in terms of someone who's not familiar with what we do. So I think they're just some of the key takeaways that I took from everyone speaking today. So hopefully that gives you a good indication of what support you have to help you throughout this process. It's a big one. Well done for even nominating. But I think it's such an amazing business development tool, as Sean was talking about before. Just the fact that you've nominated shows your dedication to the industry, to your business, and moving towards recovery as well within industry. I think it's a really positive outlook. It's going to take time, but I think we're moving in the right direction as an industry, and I think yourselves nominating is a really good step in the right direction. So wish you all the best of luck. You're not on your own. I'm here to help. You've got my contact details, so please email, call me whenever you want. Good luck with yours. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for
That's okay. How are you?
Right, have a look when I can. Lovely. Yeah, nice to catch up.
Well, drafting them this morning.
On base Adelaide.